Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and other state Democrats add a new abortion access measure to their agenda that would allow those with limited to no insurance to get financial help for an abortion care in the state. Now, House Bill 5408 would take advantage of an underused provision of the Affordable Care Act that requires insurance plans that offer coverage for abortions in instances that go beyond rape, incest, and the life of the mother to collect at least $1 a month from enrollees to cover the cost of abortion claims. Federal law only requires insurers to segregate the money and use it only for abortion care. The state bill would let Illinois exert greater authority over the funds. Insurers argue against the bill, saying it puts the state at odds with federal regulation and risks legal and operational uncertainty.